What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here from DataDash, and today is December 13th of 2024. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, because in today's video, I not only want to talk about one of the more exciting and fundamentally strong DePIN or decentralized physical infrastructure network projects within the crypto and Web3 ecosystem, but one in which has actually demonstrated real practical use case in one of the most difficult disasters that the US has faced in a long time. Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. I want to go ahead and today talk about World Mobile Token, or WMT, and how it's aiming to build a core decentralized network for telecommunications and internet connectivity that allows for the network to be owned by users and contributors, and also makes sure to bake in privacy, scalability, and low cost latency for users to be able to connect to these services and use them for a variety of different web-based applications. I want to go ahead though and start by talking though about the recent documentary that was just released here over the last 24 hours, where World Mobile Network essentially demonstrated during the disaster relief in North Carolina and Asheville and all those areas that have been affected by the broader Hurricane Helene disaster, about how they're able to utilize World Mobile in order to be able to actually reconnect and be able to connect to emergency services, connect to outside organizations in order to work on restructuring efforts. So I definitely recommend you guys check it out. I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer here so you guys can get a little taste, and then we'll dive into some of the fundamentals around the project in case you may be interested.
We are coming on the air with breaking news as Hurricane Helene gets closer to making landfall. Helene will be the strongest hurricane to hit the U.S. in over a year.
They don't have running water, internet, and cell service are also out.
A lot of issues with water, connectivity, like people can't even communicate.
Now, if you're interested to watch the full documentary, you guys can definitely check out the link down below in the description. You can follow World Mobile Token on X, and on there you'll be able to find the full mini documentary for free. It's only about 30 minutes, but I definitely think it's worth your time because, to be honest with you guys, I have a lot of family members who have gone down there to help with the disaster relief in North Carolina. I've been there as well, into that area. It's beautiful. The people there are incredibly kind. But when people say that this was like a once-in-a-century type disaster, they're not exaggerating. This was devastating for people who lived in the region. It was completely unprecedented, unexpected. And one of the biggest issues that people have had when this event happened is having that connectivity, being able to really get reconnected back with the world, as you're losing power lines, you're losing all the infrastructure that allow for not just power in your home, but also internet connectivity, actually being able to reach the outside world. And telecommunications have been a huge bottleneck here in the relief efforts that have been going on within the region. So I think it's very important to understand here that something like World Mobile Token Network could be very valuable here. Now, this is not just a project that popped up overnight. World Mobile Token has been around for a couple years here in the crypto space, and they were really a part of DePIN alongside projects like Helium way back before a lot of the more AI-centric DePIN projects have launched. And it's focused on disrupting and building a new decentralized framework for telecommunications, both in areas, for example, more rural communities that might have been hit, for example, by natural disasters like what we saw here in North Carolina, but also in the 3 billion individuals across the globe that are unconnected at the moment. There's a really great explainer within the docs section within less than 2 minutes that explains the core infrastructure of how World Mobile Network operates. But I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about how World Mobile Token actually functions from a technological perspective here within the video. So first off, I want to talk about the economic layer here, right? Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about the core token here being kind of a core utility token within the ecosystem, we have to understand how it actually operates. So essentially, there are going to be service providers within the network who operate various types of nodes who are essentially servicing bandwidth towards users across the world. So people need to make calls, texts, they need to use data. That could be for something as leisurely as checking social media. It could also be for transferring very valuable files or other types of large data sets. So essentially, by people utilizing the network, they are going to, in their local currency, just as they would with dollars or euros or pounds or any other local currency, it could even be currencies in developing regions of the world, in South America and in Africa as well, that essentially they're able to utilize their local currency as per usual on their mobile phone through the mobile application. The revenue generated from the network goes towards essentially providing rewards for operators and stakers. So essentially, as service providers within the network, anyone can essentially participate. They can buy the hardware and essentially participate in providing this excess bandwidth towards various different people, running nodes that could service entire regions and communities over a long distance. But the main thing above all is that essentially the revenue from the network is used to purchase WMT tokens. So it's a core utility token here. The more use there is in the network here, the more demand there is, the more direct benefit it's going to bring for the WMT token, right? So essentially, World Mobile Token is going to benefit from this broader expansion and use case of the network. And of course, the rewards are allocated towards those who are operators and stakers within the network. So it's a very simple model here. We built something incredibly useful to connect people who are unconnected at the moment. The people who facilitate that service get rewarded for it, and the users of the network and that service are getting much cheaper data and access to the web, much broader connection, sometimes being the only option in their region. And outside of that as well, it allows for them to be able to access this information from their mobile phone, from their desktop computer, their laptop, tablet, etc. Really getting broad range coverage that's only going to get better and better so long as more people come onto the network and serve as operators. Now, there are two major node structures that go towards actually making the network possible. There's a lot of technology we won't be able to cover today, but essentially I wanted to talk about the two core things. There are Earth nodes. These are people who help service essentially the core logic around the World Mobile Network, essentially being able to assign digital identities to various users on the network and help with actually structuring and packaging the data that is transmitted through and having actual trackable digital identities. This is very important. And it's not so much for something around identifying who you are and stuff. It's actually quite a privacy-centric network, but this is from a core infrastructure perspective in interacting with blockchains, because we have to settle with payments. We have to validate that certain services have been provided. If we're actually tracking all this in a trustless way, we need to be able to have a clear on-chain record that, for example, I used a certain amount of data from this provider, and therefore they're entitled to the compensation for the bandwidth that they provide, right? So this has more to do with the structuring of the network as any kind of protocol would require. Needless to say, all information that passes through the network is encrypted so that user privacy is maintained at all times. Now, another big thing that makes the network possible is the concept of air nodes. So these are essentially infrastructure nodes that allow for the facilitation of bandwidth or database resources towards those who are connecting from their mobile phone or their desktop or tablet in order to make calls, send text messages, or download data. So this is where the network really comes into play here, and how essentially the DePIN element starts to play a role in the vision for World Mobile. It essentially allows anyone out there to become a telecommunications provider, to be able to essentially facilitate these services to end users on the network. Right now, in the global ecosystem, there are lots of different clusters of nodes across the world, and they facilitated over the last 24 hours alone 333 terabytes of information across 6,400 nodes with over 500,000 unique users. There are very few crypto projects out there, whether projects would like to claim it or not, that are anywhere near that type of traction in real world usage. And the network has been operational, as I mentioned before, for multiple years. So essentially, to talk a little bit about this, there are different types of nodes that people can purchase. You can obviously own them remotely, so they can be facilitated essentially by World Mobile. You can also just purchase one yourself and operate it. I'm not saying that you need to do this, but essentially, as you can see, all of them are sold out right now. There's a lot of demand for people across the world to be able to facilitate these, not only in the United States, but also as well in areas of the world like Pakistan and regions that desperately need this technology as it's expanding out more and more into new regions across the globe. But essentially speaking, this is a way where whether or not you want to be exposed to the underlying token, if you believe that the demand of the network is going to pick up, or you want to be a direct facilitator, then you can also get involved this way as well. It's quite a high price tag here, but it's something that, again, if you're more of a, from a business operations standpoint, wanting to get into the telecom business and servicing this traffic for various users in certain regions where it might be necessary. This is where there can also be opportunity. There's even a calculator that you can utilize to essentially kind of measure what you would make back or the payback period, depending on the actual cost of each model. And you can compare different nodes and basically use the calculator to see if it makes sense for you to operate in that area. But above all, the big thing I want to bring up here is that from a kind of trading perspective here, I know a lot of people are wondering, what are my thoughts on World Mobile Token here? And at the end of the day, when it comes from like a price analysis perspective, obviously this has been one of the stronger altcoins here coming out of the rally that's really kicked off since back in November. It's at its highest point here since back in 2022, but it's still got a long ways to go until it would get back to those prior all-time highs at 93 cents, still a doubling from this point on, broadly speaking. The main point here I want to say is that this is really more of a question of fundamentals here. I mean, price action at the end of the day is important. I want to say that the price is holding after these rallies. If it pulls back a little bit, I want it to be able to hold on some of the key moving averages that we talk about in the channel. For example, those long-term moving averages like the 100-day and 200-day to establish for the next leg up. But for me personally, what I like about this, and it's something we don't see so much in the crypto ecosystem, is a real valuable use case and a clear utility token mechanism that benefits from the broader adoption of the network. This is something that to me is one of the most beautiful token models in the crypto space. I wish we'd see more projects using this. Instead, a lot of projects do governance tokens and just all these things that don't really put a lot of value or kind of support a foundation behind the market value of the token. So if you believe long term that this technology is going to get bigger and bigger, if you are interested in the range of partnerships that WMT has been building with the Base Network, with SingularityNet, one of the biggest AI projects now, part of essentially ASI, or Artificial Superintelligence, which merged with Fetch, as well as Ocean Protocol. If you're interested in partnerships like the one they have with Chainlink, as well as IOG, or Input Output. This is the large developer behind the Cardano network. So if you're big ADA holders, you're a big supporter of Charles and what's going on in the Cardano ecosystem, then they've been in deep collaboration. They're actually a 10% equity owner in World Mobile Group, the core company behind this project. If you're interested in this broader vision, and after doing due diligence, like diving into the white paper around World Mobile and learning about what they've been able to achieve in the past few years, then perhaps you can consider, in this case, becoming a supporter of the network, staking the token. That's something that you have to decide for yourself. I'm not here to shill it or overly promote it. I'm just here to say that I think that this is actually pretty exciting stuff. And I like seeing DePIN and any kind of narrative in crypto having real world value and actually helping people. Right? I think this was a great test example in what went on with Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. And I think you're going to see more of these popping up. But I think the bigger market vision here, while it was demonstrated really well in this example, I think the real value proposition is helping to leapfrog entire nations, entire populations, billions of people across the world who aren't connected through an AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile or Vodafone or any other type of network that the handful of networks that essentially control telecom networks over the last few decades. The future in this category of communication looks decentralized. There is real practical use for it, the cost reduction capacity, the openness to allow anyone to become a part of that process. And with technologies as well like Starlink that are further proving that there are going to be new means of communication through satellite technology, right? Completely disrupting the traditional grid of communication. I think this is just going to further propel something like World Mobile and projects like it in order to be able to really own a good portion of this market and provide serious value to people who need it most of all. So if you guys are interested, again, check out the links down below in the description. It was really interesting to watch the documentary and be able to take some time to talk to you guys about this here. Again, if you enjoyed this review, consider dropping a like. It's a great way to support the content here on this channel. And I'll see you guys right back here on the next video. Take care, everyone.